Hi everyone! Today's episode is about a vacuum cleaner that brings a lot of interesting features and innovations. So if you stick with me, I'll show it to you. Alright, let's call it by its name. This is the JIMMY JV9 Pro Aqua. But why is it called Aqua? I'll explain that a bit later. Before that, as is customary, I will thoroughly show you all the included accessories, then discuss the detailed specifications, highlight what truly makes this particular vacuum cleaner exceptionally interesting, and subsequently, we will proceed directly to the comprehensive tests. So let's dive right in. Accessories. Well, I don't want to talk too much about the smaller items. We have a very useful crevice tool, a small versatile brush attachment, and a larger, more comprehensive brush attachment as well. These are typical Jimmy quality parts, although I have to add that it seems like the quality of these components has slightly declined in recent years. Not by much, but I still thought it was worth mentioning. However, there are some really great things here as well. For example, here is the absolute holy grail of car cleaning, this incredibly flexible hose. You can easily attach it to the vacuum cleaner, put one of the small specialized brushes on it, and you can effortlessly vacuum the seats in your car. So this is a really good thing. We have a tube, which is of course made of metal with very good contacts and very good connectors. Its length is not adjustable, but it can be folded, which is important because it allows you to push the vacuum cleaner under furniture where you otherwise wouldn't be able to reach with this vacuum cleaner. More precisely, the vacuum cleaner head. So the point is that this tube can be bent at a 90-degree angle so you can push it under beds, wardrobes, sofas, anywhere the vacuum cleaner head fits. This is again a very good feature, definitely worth highlighting. Let's move on. We have a smaller, more compact motorized head. This is the so-called mite head or the specialized upholstery cleaning head, which is specifically used for thoroughly vacuuming our various upholstered furniture pieces. It's also called a mite vacuum. It's worth talking about the large motorized head because this large motorized head is the usual Jimmy quality. Again, it's very good. However, it's important to point out that this furry thing inside here, this brush, is mostly suitable for hard floors. It's not suitable at all for long pile carpets. For short pile carpets, it can still work. But on hard floors like tiles, parquet, and similar surfaces, it's perfect. What's interesting about this head, and something I definitely have to mention as a negative, is that there are no LEDs on the front here, and let's just say that's pretty strange since nowadays even mid-range machines have LEDs, and in fact even entry-level ones do too. But here there's no LED. I suspect that Jimmy took this head from an older model back when having these LEDs wasn't really expected yet. I'd like to move on to the main unit, but before that, there are definitely a few things I need to mention about it, specifically regarding the specifications. So the battery is 4500 mAh and it has a suction power of 21,000 pascals. Now 21,000 pascals might seem low, but believe me, this isn't the same 21,000 pascals as with those cheap vacuum cleaners that claim 30 or 40,000 pascals. This really is 21,000 pascals, which is quite a significant suction power. The manufacturer says that with this machine, you can vacuum for up to 3/4 of an hour. Obviously, that's only true if you use it at a lower speed. If you want to use it at the highest speed, you have 8 to 10 minutes, although the manufacturer claims it's 12, but that's not entirely true. Because at the highest setting, when the battery starts to run low, it automatically drops the speed by 1 level, which means you'll be able to vacuum at full power for about 4 to 5 minutes, and then you'll be able to continue vacuuming for another 5-6 minutes at a slightly lower speed. So it's a bit of a tricky thing, but let's just say it's acceptable. It's acceptable also because one of the most important features of this vacuum cleaner is that it has an automatic mode. According to the manufacturer, the automatic mode can detect the type of floor surface, so it knows when you're on a carpet or on a hard floor, and it also senses the amount of dust, adjusting the suction power and the motor's performance accordingly. Well, this is truly and remarkably great because the motor will only run at its full optimal power when it is actually and genuinely needed. So if you use it in automatic mode, sometimes it will use very little suction and other times it will use a lot, so the operating time can go up to even 20 or 25 minutes depending on how dirty your home is. So in my opinion, this machine turned out to be a really great little device, and this base model has a few features that are definitely worth highlighting. Although this is already a bit related to the test, I'll still mention these things. Now, the fact that the bottom opens at the press of a button isn't really a big innovation, since these machines already have this one button emptying function. You press it, it opens, and the dirt falls out. What's interesting about this vacuum cleaner, or more precisely about this dustbin, is not that. On one hand, this dustbin is very large. On the other hand, what's really interesting about it is that it's divided into two sections. This dustbin has a distinct front part and a separate back part. The steel filter insert is precisely located in the back part. However, the front part is separated and is connected through a small opening. It connects to the very back part at this specific section here. This particular design is extremely important because the larger, coarser dirt and debris always tend to stay in the front part of the system. Consequently, the back part essentially remains quite clean, ensuring that this crucial steel filter also stays perfectly clean during the entire vacuuming process. Hair and fur do not get wrapped around it, dust does not accumulate on its surfaces, and it does not get clogged, so the suction power basically remains almost completely unchanged, even if the container is nearly full of accumulated dust. I definitely consider this a very, very good and truly innovative development, and during extensive use and thorough testing, it has consistently proven just how exceptionally good and effective it truly is. So what else is there to know about this? Well, you should know that, of course, this also contains a multi-layer filtration system. The first layer is the separation container. We have the cyclonic section where in the middle the air is spun around the filter. Only the very, very tiny dust particles make it through the filter. But inside here, within this filter, there is a second cyclonic system as well, which further spins the air and separates the dust from the air. So the dust stays outside while the air continues on. And as if that weren't enough, of course, the vacuum cleaner also comes with a HEPA filter. Now, what's interesting about this vacuum cleaner is that the HEPA filter isn't hidden. You don't need to disassemble anything to remove the HEPA filter, clean it, or wash it. Instead, you simply have to lift off the top of the vacuum cleaner, and right there on top is the HEPA filter, which can be removed with a half turn, so both replacing and cleaning this HEPA filter is very easy. Of course, all the individual parts of this filter system are completely washable, so you absolutely do not have to replace everything right away as soon as it unfortunately gets dirty. And now let's move on to what truly and actually makes this particular device an Aqua, because this impressive vacuum cleaner actually has another specialized vacuum head, which is specifically suitable for effective wet mopping. Well, this is precisely what it looks like. On the bottom of this vacuum head, there are two rotating mops that spin at 210 revolutions per minute. And these two rotating mops are what scrub the floor. On top, there's a water tank, which you can fill with water here. There's a little flap you can open, and that's where you pour in the water. What's really interesting about this mopping part is that it doesn't work like a typical vacuum mop, because with those, the machine sucks up the dirty water, but with this one, it doesn't suck it back up. With this one, water flows from the tank onto the mop by gravity, and you can use the wet mop to clean the floor. The only way to control it is with this button here, because if you press this button while it's running, a small green LED lights up, indicating that the water can flow through. When you press it again, of course, the water stops. This way, you can control how much water gets onto the mop. By default, in my opinion, it uses a bit too much water. But honestly, it's not terribly excessive, though it could have been a little less. Now, what's even more interesting about this is that if you use this head on the vacuum cleaner, the suction stops. Obviously, because it can't suck through this. This is a completely and thoroughly sealed thing. So if you carefully use this particular head, the vacuum's powerful suction effectively stops, and only the dedicated mopping head operates fully. In other words, these specialized mops will vigorously spin around. And besides these important components, there's one more crucial thing I absolutely need to show you, namely the next exciting feature. Well, the stand. So there's a relatively simple stand that we have to screw together at the bottom here. You can put the accessories on this stand, you can place the vacuum cleaner in it, you can put the two large heads on the bottom, so it's a relatively good quality stand. There's really no issue with the quality here. However, I do have one notable issue. Unlike the more expensive premium machines, this particular stand does not actually charge the vacuum cleaner. In other words, when you want to charge the vacuum cleaner, you'll have to plug the cable into the bottom of the battery, or more precisely, into the side here. There are these minor little issues, which I would say are still quite forgivable because otherwise the machine itself is almost perfect. I did a noise test and of course a vacuuming test with this machine, and since it also has a mopping head, I also mopped, because naturally that had to be included in the test as well. What can be said about the noise level? The machine delivers what the manufacturer promises. What's interesting about it is that even though there are several speed and power levels, there's actually not much difference in noise between the different power settings, and the noise itself isn't loud or disturbing. So in fact, we're talking about a relatively quiet vacuum cleaner, which is something you can expect from Jimmy in my opinion. I also carried out the usual vacuuming tests. I vacuumed up flour, rice, and cat food. The cat food was for the larger particle-sized dirt, the rice for the medium and smaller particles, and the flour for dust. I really like using flour because when it passes through the filter system, the white flour can settle, and it's very easy to see how far the dust gets through. It shows how good the vacuum cleaner's filter system is. I probably don't even need to explicitly state that the vacuuming test was absolutely perfect. In fact, it effortlessly picked up everything, didn't scatter the various different types of dirt, and everything ended up neatly in the container in virtually no time at all. And what's very important, as I've already mentioned, is that everything ended up in the front part of the container, the section where the larger debris collects. In fact, even the flour basically all ended up here, and this rear section remained almost completely clean even during the vacuuming test. The filtration system worked relatively well, although I have to say that I have seen better filtration systems than this. However, it's definitely worth noting that no dirt made it through the HEPA filter, which is certainly a good thing. So the filtration system and the filtration efficiency promised by the manufacturer for this machine, in my opinion, are accurate and present. Of course, besides the vacuuming tests, everyone is obviously interested in what this aqua head, this mopping head, is actually good for. Well, I did a somewhat tougher test where I smeared ketchup on my table and cleaned it up with this. Honestly, it cleaned it up. The only significant problem with this whole cleaning thing is that this particular head doesn't effectively suck up the dirt. It also doesn't wash the mop while actively cleaning. Instead, the dirt you wipe up from the floor will simply be smeared around by these mops until you actually thoroughly wash the mop itself. This is good for dusting a floor, for mopping a floor in an apartment where there isn't a lot of dirt. And perhaps this is the most important thing to highlight about the mop head. It will be suitable for apartments where there isn't a lot of dirt. However, for such apartments, it's perfect. You can mop the entire place in no time. Let's just say I managed to mop everything in about 10 minutes, and that's actually really great. There's really no issue with its effectiveness because it can also clean up slightly dried on dirt and stains just as well. Obviously, I would again emphasize that this is specifically in apartments where there isn't a significant amount of dirt. If there's a substantial amount of dirt and you truly need to clean up a large amount of mud, various food scraps, and all sorts of other things like that, then this particular vacuum head, this specific mop head, simply won't be sufficient for your needs, and you'll definitely have to purchase a more robust vacuum cleaner that can perform effective wet mopping or thorough wet vacuuming as well. So let's sum it up. The point is that Jimmy is a premium manufacturer among Chinese brands, and the JIMMY JV9 Pro Aqua is a premium vacuum cleaner among Chinese upright vacuums. So the machine itself is absolutely good. This is reflected a bit in its price, but it's still not the price of a Dyson. It's just a fraction of that. So if you want to buy a premium quality Chinese vacuum cleaner, I think you can safely choose a Jimmy. As usual, you'll find the link, the coupon code, and the reference to the written article in the video description. If you like this video, choose one of the other two videos appearing next to me, watch those as well, and come back soon because I'll be back with another review soon. Until then, take care and goodbye.